Hey folks, this is Mary Ellen. It is, what day is this? Monday, March 2nd, 2020. Today, I understand, is election day in Israel. So, and tomorrow's Super Tuesday, right? So let's be praying about these elections, both for the many states here as well as for what's going to happen in Israel between Netanyahu and Gantz. It should be interesting to see if either one of them can form a government, and how, are people frustrated enough to keep Netanyahu in power, or what are they going to do? The other thing that's really big news is the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the Louisiana case on abortion rights. And Louisiana passed a bill that all abortionists, all baby murderers, have to have visiting privileges at the local hospital in order to be able to do what they do. I know in the abortion clinic that closed near me, the one where I used to pray and hear babies screaming while I was praying, it was so hard. All they did was move closer to DC, but which I was surprised at, because they moved into a richer area. But that clinic had several women who died because they had punctured the uterus and other things while doing it. These abortionists are into mass production, and they really are not. They don't care about the baby, obviously, and they really don't care about the women either, and are not real careful. So, I knew that Mayor Pete, I will not say his last name because it makes me want to say other things about it. I knew Mayor Pete had dropped out. I did not know, I guess Steyer dropped out on Saturday or Friday. I did not know Amy Klobuchar had dropped out. I was expecting that because she had done so poorly, but thanks for letting us know. So 3 dropped out. We're pretty much down to Joe Biden, who was supposed to be the front runner from the get-go. Mike Bloomberg still is throwing his money around, but not doing well. And Bernie Sanders. And, we're all expecting that they're going to take it away from him. I don't know what happened to Elly. I don't know what's going on with her, so I'm still waiting for her to come in. I got an update on Larry, but I really don't have any news to report. I just know that Mark was able to get some information, but details are lacking, and so I don't really know. All I know is there's been some contact made, and I have no idea any further than that. I was given a phone number to try and make contact with something other than Larry's cell phone. I was too busy yesterday with the open house. The open house was supposed to last 2 hours. It went 2.5 hours. There we go. Elly's here. Hi, Elly.
Hi.
So I will give you the news on my end. Open house was supposed to be 2 hours Sunday afternoon. It lasted 2.5 hours at least, or more. We started out in the first 10 minutes with 5 cars pulling up, and there were a couple families. There were 2 women that came together. I don't know if it was a mother-daughter, if it was relatives, if it was a couple. I have no idea. And then 2 men came together. The 2 men seemed somewhat interested. There were 2 families that were seemed quite interested. I do not know if my real estate agent got their contact information when he asked them to put contact info. People are real reticent to do anything. A couple of them said they already had agents. So I have not. There was supposedly somebody who did not come to the open house yesterday who wanted to make an offer yesterday. wanted it presented last night. By the time I got the call, I was in bed before 6:30 last night. I was just, I said that, you can tell them that you presented it to me if you want, but I said, I'm not making a decision until, I wasn't going to make a decision until today. I was too exhausted last night, and it was 10 o'clock before I really was feeling like I was functional. I'm at a point, I am just worn out. I still have a few things on my punch out list that I was working my way through this morning. So how'd the open house go? I think there were probably 10 cars that showed up, and some had one family had two little boys, one family came with one little boy. We're talking little, like 5, 6, maybe 7, maybe 4, age-wise. And we had a few middle-aged couples. There were Indians, Chinese, Caucasian, quite a mix. But I live in an area of quite a variety of races mixed together outside of DC. So, sorry, I'm choking on my not swallowing the way I should. I have developed my grandmother's throat, and I can just swallow the wrong way, and I'm left with a coughing fit, so forgive me. So that's my news. That's the lack of or inadequate or incomplete news about Larry. I do have a phone number to try. I haven't tried it yet because my daughter came and visited with her kids. She was in town and she was headed home and stopped by here on her way back out of town. So I got to see somebody, and so that's all the news I've got. We talked about Elly. We talked about, Sherry mentioned that Klobuchar, Mayor Pete, and Steyer both left the race.
There's New York had, I think, another death of the virus.
Washington,
I didn't really watch the news this morning.
Washington has had 2 deaths. One died last night, but both of them are elderly people from the same assisted living place.
Yeah, and see, that's what I was saying on my show is, when you look into who's died here, it's people with compromised immune systems. So it'd be someone like me with MS. I have no immune system, and it's harder for me to get over infections. So of course, it would affect me way different than someone that's very, very strong and doesn't have the immune deficiencies like others do. And that's what I'm finding out. And
starts with a sore throat. From what I listened to this morning, it starts with a sore throat, and the cough is a dry cough. So that they said if there's mucus and anything going on nasally and sinus wise, that is a cold. This virus goes pretty much straight to the lungs with a very dry cough. And that is more dangerous because you can't cough anything out.
Yeah.
I listened. I not listened. I saw an article this morning that went back to 2000. It's since 2000, but there were probably at least 8 different viruses: SARS, MERS, Ebola. And it was interesting. They said every other year. So it's been on the even years. Therefore, it's an election year.
Yeah.
So every election year since.
And most of them come from
2008.
Most of them come from Asia. Most of them come from Asia. And it goes right back to what their sanitary conditions and also the stuff they eat. and it's not good. It's not good.
Well, and they've come out with a new vaccine every couple of years, and it's a flu vaccine, and the flu mutates, and they can never anticipate what flu there's going to be. Um, Even when they come up with a vaccine for the flu this year, it's hit or miss and guessing. And
Yeah.
Israel claims that they've got a vaccine for the coronavirus, but you know, there are so many things, products you can buy for cleaning and different disinfection and stuff that all say
Mhm.
coronavirus, but
And don't take
they have done something to this one.
and Mary Ellen, the biggest thing that I'm finding out, and it's, man, this is a lot of what I'm going to be going over on Jason Goodman tomorrow, is people that take, run to the doctor for their colds and flu and get put on antibiotics. And they get immune to the antibiotics. And that's something that's going on not just in our country, but worldwide. So when you put them on, you go to like amoxicillin and you go to the next one up, and then that one kind of doesn't work on you, so they get the stronger one. And so by the time like coronavirus hits, it's harder for the antibiotics to work because your system is immune to it. And try hard not to just get on antibiotics. Try over the counter, like your vitamins, and like vitamin K, vitamin C, your B's, your B vitamins. Try all those first, and try to take them all the time, because from the sounds of it, we might even have to go to home remedies to beat some of these things, because some of them are just a simple virus, on steroids. And I know everybody's heard that on the news, and that's pretty much what it means. Is we're just so immune to the antibiotics that are out on the market for us to take. And what's even more scarier is all of our antibiotics come from other countries, which is China and Israel. And we don't really have a really good pharmaceutical company here that we can get our stuff from. And that's going to, if we do get something worse than coronavirus and we don't start producing our own antibiotics, it's going to hurt us in the long run. It'd be like the mask. We're going to run out. Then what? And it's scary, because I think the coronavirus, I think it's going to blow over. Mary Ellen, what gets me more than anything is they throw this fit over corona, but what about AIDS? 32 million people have been killed with AIDS, and they don't even want to address it. Nobody wants to address that, when that is very, very, you can contract it very easy. And people with blood disorders and stuff, if the blood is tainted, it's happened before where the blood has been tainted and it gives everybody AIDS. Or look at Africa. 75% of the population in Africa have AIDS. But we're not addressing those illnesses. We're just worried about the coronavirus. And, look at how many people in this country have got AIDS compared to corona.
Well, look how many people die of the flu every year, just regular flu.
Um,
Good
why
question.
does the
And then
U.S.
why
not?
don't we produce our own own medicines?
We do for some, but a lot of it we do. It's cheaper to get it from another country. That's why the trade, Trump's trying to make it even Stevens, to bring those companies back into our country, and that way we can produce our own stuff. But when we chased all these companies out, even the pharmaceuticals, and this is something you don't really hear on the news, because they're more worried about what the car manufacturers. Really? Why didn't they tell us about the drug manufacturers that left our country? They didn't. And some of the a lot of our farming went to China. Why can't we produce our own food, our own medicine? And that is really what Trump is trying to do. And that's part of, we talked about doing socialism today. And that's part of capitalism versus socialism. Is capitalism, we produce our own and everybody distributes the wealth. Socialism, you help everybody in every country, it's worldwide, and then we start helping the poor get their fair share in other countries. And of course, we tax ours to pay for it, and the taxes go higher and higher to where the companies flee. And now Trump is, if everybody sees, he's keeping the interest rates really super low. He's dropping them. He's going to give the middle class a break, which means, and what is middle class? And everybody says, oh yeah, it's everybody that makes over, let's say, I think it's 27,000. It now they lowered it. Okay, and it's like, yay, everybody, the working class. No, to be honest, that's small businesses. A small business like what I used to have with my party and wedding. I needed that to be able to hire people to work for me. And if you tax the middle class so high, like it's been done over the decades, your small businesses falter and you don't have them. And that's what was in the recession with Obama, was the fact that we chased not only big businesses out to other countries, but we crushed the small businesses in our country. And all that does is lead to empty buildings, empty spaces. You start looking like a third world country. Then where does the homeless have to go? These empty spaces, these empty buildings. And you see it all over America. Right, there isn't really a middle class anymore because Obama, in his years, crushed it. And that's why it's so important. And, Trump doesn't have the time to tell people this. And the media is too busy, and nobody can really simplify it enough for the American people to understand. And maybe that's what I'm good at, because I love explaining this stuff. And so that's what we need, that's where you tell people that want socialism, you say, no, it crushes us. Let's start back at Bush. Remember One World Order, Mary Ellen? The
You
One
talking
World
about
Order.
HW, Poppy? Which Bush?
The baby Bush. You remember either actually both of them, and even Clinton spoke of the One World Order. One World Order is, if you look at the plan, it was our Agenda 21. It was our smart meters. It was reinforcing the UN. And that is a type of the plan, the beginning plan of socialism. And how do I know this? I watched it. We've all watched it in Venezuela. We have. We just haven't noticed it over the last 2 decades. And that's what they did. They brought that in. Then you need a few presidents to introduce socialism, which Hillary Clinton and the Clintons were hardcore socialists. They were here, and we knew it. And what that does is they bring in government jobs. They bring in more jobs with the government, to where it's easier to work for the government, easier to get into work for the government, and bunches of really good programs that kind of seem senseless. Some of them work to help people. And then they could say, we did this all for the poor. This is, one of them was like, they opened up thousands of jobs for the forestry department. You used to be able to you have to have a degree. Well, then they opened it up for groundkeepers and this and that. If the government can get you working for them, how easy is it for them to snag your check when socialism is in effect? It's that easy. You have your house, you get your house mortgaged by the government. using your vet bills or your your veterans loans. You go and you get government backed loans, which a lot of people do. I did it. But guess what? If it goes socialism and you haven't had your house paid off, guess who owns it now? The government. And you know what? That's what happened in Venezuela. The
Yeah,
next,
Larry has told us the first thing they will do is the government will take over the banks.
yeah, but we have to, and then after the Clintons, then you got into Obama. You have to be able to love and trust your president while he opens up. You have to open up your country to help not just your country, but other countries, because you have to help the poor. And in order to help the poor, that's more money that goes in to taxes. And when you start raising your taxes, and when you start raising your taxes, that's what let me get my notes out because what Obama did, if you notice, he started taxing a lot of the companies, and that's where I'm saying where everything was starting to flee.
He started taxing what? Who?
Most of the companies that made 100,000 or more, right? And that's where you start. And then he lowered it, and that's when I said you started seeing the Small Business Administration crumble. Okay. And then we raised the taxes again because of new programs we needed for the poor and to help people out. Then we had DACA. Remember, we had to bring DACA in. That raised our taxes. Then we had to, with the Dreamers and all that, that was another program that was established. We have DACA. Now we got the Dreamers. So then we raise our taxes again. Then we had the medical care that Obama brought in. Well, in order to pay for that, we had our taxes raised again. And of course, what do they call this? Inflation. Recession, inflation. And that's what had happened. And then you bring the rich people in, right? And your stars to support it. And you tell them how great it is going. And if we all work this way and just raise taxes again, if we can raise taxes again under this new program that is just for the recession, we could start building again. And what's that called? A stimulus package. Sound familiar? Well, you got your stimulus package now. And of course, it's going to make everything become better. Well, you have to convince the people that now that you've raised their taxes, and even though the small businesses aren't there, that's okay. Because and unemployment is so high. Well, see, that's okay, because guess what we're going to do? We're going to bring in more programs to help the poor. And what we need to do is raise the minimum wage to help the poor. And then what we'll do is we will make those nasty businessmen and the rich men that have these small businesses that are left, we'll make them pay for it. Anybody over 50,000, oh yeah, we're going to make them pay for it. And they did that, and guess what? We put the minimum wage up. We hit them with their taxes really super hard. Of course, the taxes, what that does is now you're making less money in your paycheck than you did before you got the raise. But guess what? It's helping the poor. Don't complain. We've got Obama in charge. He's going to get us out of this with his stimulus package. And so what's that lead you to, is now our country is ready for somebody that is a hardcore, nice, kind of cool dude, kind of older guy that has a bunch of young people around him and seems really hip, and he's got all the college students, and it's called socialism. And that's what this country was ready for when either Hillary or Bernie made it in 2016. And this is what happened. Because now, if everything would have worked and they put in the next stimulus package, it would have been harder for our farmers would have failed, our coal manufacturers failed, all the big, huge manufacturing companies would have fled to other countries. They could have made the product cheaper, and then they would be selling it to us higher. Okay, so all of us are unemployed. All of us are faltering on our mortgages, remember? All them repossessions that happened, it was all set to bring in socialism. And unfortunately, Trump got in and interfered with it, but they are still ready to bring in socialism because it wouldn't be hard to take out what Trump has done at this point. If this man makes it 4 more years, they're screwed. They are so screwed. It would take at least another 2 terms of a Democrat to erase what Trump is doing very quickly. And everybody says, well, it doesn't seem like he's doing anything. Well, you do not realize behind the scenes what he's doing until you start hearing this stuff, like the small businesses that is starting to come back. The more money in our paychecks, and don't take that raise so quick. Don't raise minimum wage so quick just yet. Let's deal with what we're doing now, and then let these small businesses, let them decide, their bosses decide who needs a raise and who earned it. Because all we're going to get is back in the colonial days when we first started, when they had the let's say a whole sharecrop of people that give, and everybody's supposed to give in there, and everybody gets their equal share of the produce. Well, what you end up with is a couple people working and some just don't want to work. And we're seeing that in America. And what happens is the people that don't want to work over here to dig in the dirt, they're getting all their stuff for free. The other people are working super hard are getting the same share. And that's what socialism is everybody gets their fair share as we chase everything out of the country. And what do we end up with? Super high prices at the store that we can't afford. And of course, the government will step in and you'll get a box lunch of probably a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, probably worse than what they get in jails. And with no money for the government, that's when they start releasing prisoners, which they're doing now. More homeless people. And it's so sad what they've led our country to the point of socialism, that if we would have had Hillary for a president and looking at a second term, it would have been pretty much communism that would have moved in really, really swift. And I think it's so important that people learn the signs and what the signs were over the decades. And see, that's why I think history is so important, is to see all the signs of socialism and look at other countries that have used it over the decades. Like Venezuela is the perfect example. And I really believe that's what they were trying to do to Ukraine. I think Ukraine was next. They had their dictator in place that was willing to go socialist, and that country would have failed if it wasn't for Russia sticking their nose in it and say, no, you're not going to do it, and cause the war. I'm not real proud of what Russia does at times, but at least Putin stopped hardcore socialism to move into Ukraine and have it crumble. Because all it is once it crumbles, all the rich, like all the stars that are like sucking on the socialist dream, they're just waiting so they can get oil companies, gas companies buy in on the diamond mines or minerals, anything that can be produced that they can buy into, that they can become very, very rich. And that's why the stars are so into the Democrats, They're waiting for their fair share of money and wealth so they can all be wealthy, and we're all going to be working like dogs and slaves for them, for these stars that hate us. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to work for Ellen DeGeneres. I'm not going to work for all those wackos on The View to get rich and me to lose my money to the government, my house to the government, my car, our forms of transportation, because they want to get rich off our country and the resources. You know, so that's the socialism I believe that Larry really is fearful on. And you know, Larry gives us really good points on it. But in order to really get the people to understand and say, no, we're not going to have it, we're going to put our foot down, is when you start listening to all the details and how close we are on the brink of it. And it takes someone really good to explain it, because when I first started looking into it, it was like I just couldn't grasp it. And you know, once I've went through the college courses I am now, and I'm learning government and civics all over again, now it's clicked. And you know, that's why when I said, hey, let's do socialism on Monday, I was like, yeah, let's do it, because I have learned so much in the last few weeks with the courses I'm taking. And I am not going to shut up. I'm going to tell people what it is and what it's about. And if they don't understand, then I'll simplify it, because I'm really good at explaining for some reason for a lot of people. And if that's my niche, you know, it's like, you know, Marianne, I told you the other day, you said, you know, what does God have planned for me? And I said, maybe it's to spread and keep Larry Nichols alive there, you know. Mine is, I think, to explain stuff and to be fearful on, and things not to be fearful about, and help explain our government to people way better than even I've seen some teachers do. A lot of these instructors at the colleges, they confuse the hell out of me. I don't know what they're talking about. Oh, it's fascist? No. Socialism and fascism is two different things. Fascism is a manner you conduct yourself. Socialism is a plan to budget a government, you know. And so when they want to say, oh, you're anti-socialist and you're capitalist fascist, no, capitalists and fascists are two different things, and they want to stick it together to make it sound like if you are a capitalist, you're greedy and you're rich and you want all the money to yourself, you don't want to help anybody, which makes you a Nazi. No, it does not. It's a way you conduct yourself as a fascist. I mean, I live in the South and I'm proud of our rebel flag, but it doesn't mean KKK to me. It means the South. It's part of the South and part of our flag. And it doesn't mean nothing horrible like Nazis and burning people on the cross or hanging people. It does not mean that. But to anybody else, like in California, oh my goodness, you're a fascist, you're a Nazi. And well, I'm not rich, so what happened there? You know, and they go, well, you know, they have no rhyme or reason for it. And then when I tell them my adopted son is a fine black man with 5 kids that he's raising on his own, I say, no, where's the racist in that? I'm not racist. And it's the way you conduct yourself. If I want to be a KKK, I could do that, but that's not my cup of coffee. I like my coffee strong and black, like my men. Just like they said on that movie Airplane, I'm not going to sweeten it up with government programs that's going to ruin my coffee. So,
Edward said you should run for office. I said we'll get to that next time.
2024, if not the following. I'm trying to go through these college courses as quick as I can and as busy as I am. There's nights people will see me up till 2 a.m. because I'm trying to run my news page and do my live shows, get on other people's shows. I'm working on trying to get my studio together and going to college at night. And I think I will be ready to run for office. I really do. But you need somebody. We need to start getting people in office that understand what government is. They all go through the political science classes, but I don't think they understand. And I think the older politicians have warped the government understanding and how you understand how it's written. And this is something that I've recently learned in a course, that it is all written out. All the laws are there. But when you read it, you'll read it one certain way. And if someone is looking for a corrupt way to warp it, they can see it that way and they can move on. And it actually has gotten to where we're changing our Constitution to warp it into what the Democrats wanted it to mean in the first place, because they were the first party. And if it wasn't for Whigs and the Republican Party that started later on, we wouldn't have this wonderful Constitution that keeps us to run our country right and to run it as capitalist, not as a socialist. They've been trying to get socialism in since early, very, very early on. Even the first farmers, and I told you that story about with sharecroppers, that was even the first form of socialism, and it failed because you have some that work and some that don't. And of course, socialism is one for all. Everybody gets equally. And in capitalism is about, you know what, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to make something of myself and get a company without the government stopping me and saying, no, you got to share it with everybody that's poor. Because that's what we're doing. All of our taxes being taken out is only for us to share with the poor. And as they sit on their little behinds and do nothing.
Hold on. They say it's for the poor, but they actually end up, putting it in the pockets of the rich because the money is given. I mean, California, my understanding is California gets $40,000 per homeless person to try and help them, and then they do nothing to help. And whose pocket is that 40,000 per person going into?
It all goes. It's kind of like some of these government-run programs where, like a hospital, they send all that money in to help them, millions. Well, you get your CEOs and your main board members get their share first. Then they send it on. Then it's the administrators and out of the hospital. They get their fair share. Then it goes on to all the department heads. They get their fair share. Then it goes to all the managers. They get their fair share.
Scratch the word fair.
Huh?
Scratch the word fair. It's their.
Well, see, that's the way they present it, because everybody gets their fair share. And that's what even Bernie Sanders, everybody needs their fair share. It's got to be free. So everybody gets their fair share. Well, by the time your fair share gets to the local worker, there ain't nothing there. And what kind of raise they get? Oh, wow, we get a nickel. We get 25 cents. How many people have gotten 25-cent raise? Wow. What the heck does that cover at the end of the pay period? And then you find out, oh, they're going to raise our taxes this year. Okay, well, there goes that quarter. And that's what really people need to understand. And they need to understand this is what Trump knows. Trump's a businessman and he knows this. So what he does is he's going to cut the taxes. He's not letting the Federal Reserve come in and raise that percentage up. He told them no, no. And we should be saying no. You know, the Federal Reserve, stay the heck out, and we really need to get rid of it. And get the, like Trump wants, the dollar backed by gold. During Obama and all of them, it was like, oh, well, you know, we have a printing press, we'll just print more money. And they print more money, but who's backing it? Nothing. And that's what made us lose our dollar. We ended up like monopoly money. We might as well just pull all the monopolies games off the shelf and start handing out money and telling everybody to use it, because that's what Obama was doing. He was printing and printing and printing and printing. And in the meantime, our deficit went up and up and up and up to the point where if it does break, it could cause a horrible recession if Trump doesn't keep all these cuts and bringing everything back into the United States to where we're sustainable. And you know, get excited when he says we're sustainable with oil and gas and our resources. That's awesome. Now we just need the rest of it. We need all these companies to come back into our country to start the manufacturing process. Even the coal. We've got clean coal. And, you know, they say, oh, Trump's dumping it in the rivers. Okay. Prove it. I went looking. I can't find no streams that got gunk in it. You check your EPA reports. You check your different towns for their water and their resources. I don't find gunk in the rivers. I hear about it and I see pictures about it, but when you ask them what river's at, so I can go tell them to quit. They can't give you the river. Nobody knows. And then I heard it was some river down in Kentucky that one of them was pouring it into. I called the town that coal place was at. I asked them if they were doing it, and of course they're going to say no, even if they're doing it. Well, then you look at all their water resources in the town, of what's in their water, what they're fixing, because there's ways to look into this. And when it all boils down to, with the EPA and their own water reports, there's nothing in the rivers. Now we've got plenty of crap in the oceans from us dumping garbage. But whose fault is dumping of the garbage? See, that was my thing, is because I'm a big ecologist. And who's dumping this crap in the oceans? That's what I wanted to know. Because that would be like dumping the crud in the rivers. Am I right, y'all? So I went to looking, and come to find out, what they did was from, I'm going to say the end of the Bush era into Obama, they were cutting so bad to all the sanitation departments and the global guys that remove it to either burn it or bury it. They were so hard struck down by ecologists that they had to find a new way. Well, we all seen the barges on the ocean that were just floating around. Meantime, they're dumping out a little here, a little there. And then they go back into the port and they don't have no more garbage. What did they do with that garbage? They threw it in the ocean. And nobody knew, and no one said anything about it. And the only reason why I found out about it was well wars, because they caught them doing it. They actually caught the ones off the Pacific coast dumping garbage into the ocean. Thank goodness for well wars. And now what do we have? We have a garbage island off the Pacific coast the size of Texas. And, you know, that's just the garbage. That's not including the sludge that goes for miles around it. You add the sludge to it, you have an island as big as 2 Texases. That's how massive this garbage crap in our ocean is. And it's not just ours. Hawaii's got one worse. In Hawaii, they don't care. They just throw their garbage into the ocean. They don't even care that people know about it. and the same way over in China and a lot of the Asian countries. And it's really sad of what our government does and then taxes us for, because we're paying for that, paying for them to find a cleaner way to dump garbage. Well, cleaner isn't throwing it in the ocean. Cleaner, I thought, was burying it or burning it or some other way. Well, look at all the stuff they've been having us separate for recycling. Okay, then how did all the jugs and the straws end up in the ocean? It's you guys, it's when you start, if you look at it and you get mad enough and you look into it, you start finding the stuff out. And then there's people like me that know it, and I say it and people say, prove it. I'm like, well, heck, I'm gonna call the EPA. I'm brave enough to call these head people and say, well, why is there this stuff going on? And I always present it in a real dumb way to where they really have to explain it to me. Really, really have to explain it to me. And that way I have a way to explain it to others that don't understand it. And what we need is to get the country back in order, because you watch, if Trump starts putting more of the money and less taxes on the wealthy, and I'm not talking billionaires. I mean, the billionaires need to be taxed. The millionaires, the ones that have these big manufacturing companies or big, huge companies, come back. We will be able to give the money to people like the government that dumps our garbage, to find a cleaner way of disposal and go back to either burning it, or if we can clean coal, we can clean garbage, and we can use more plastics. We need more plastic manufacturers that'll use the recyclable goods, not chase them out of the country to where we throw it in the ocean. And, people don't think of all the little companies and manufacturers that's been taken out, just like the trees over a spotted owl. We were planting trees. Plant trees, as many as you can. An apple tree, a bush, plant it, because it only helps our air. But it gives us the chance to be able to cut the trees down for paper, which is burnable. It is burnable. Paper is burnable. It goes really quick. And that's from our wood. And I wish we would go back to cutting the trees. We just have to replant. I'm not talking deforesting like China does. China just goes in and mows it all down. And they take it and they process it, and voila, you have wood that's expensive. Well, what about if you're going to cut down 50 trees, you plant 150? And cut the old growth, not new growth. And that's something, I learned out in California in the ecology scene. I used to love hiking. That's why I'm into saving our earth, is how beautiful this country is. Look how the wonders that God has given us, and we're polluting it the wrong way. And with really bad government that just don't know how to govern and keep our country clean. You know what was the biggest seller keeping America clean? And I know Mary Ellen's going to remember this because she's as old as I am. We're old as dirt and cute as mud. You remember the Indian guy that at the end of the night, when TV used to go off the air, and it would show him and people throw garbage at his feet, and it was Keep America Beautiful? That was the biggest.
You must be older than me.
Oh, you don't remember it?
Elly, I have not commercial with TV. No, I didn't grow up with TV. I didn't grow up in the States either.
That's true. You did. It it was it was something that at the end of the night, it would be like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it would be this Indian guy, and he'd go out, and it was like someone would drive by and they'd throw garbage at his feet, and you'd see the tear come down. It was Keep America Beautiful. That was one of the best sellers. And that year and the years after, for until they quit showing it, more Americans threw away their trash and didn't throw it on the ground at like parks and places, away from their house. They kept it more beautiful then than they did 10 years after the fact. And it was a strong message in a commercial. And, I salute that Indian man for that, because he taught us, the other thing was, everybody they put Nancy Reagan down for this. You remember the egg that fried in the pan? This is your brain on drugs. It woke a lot of people up. Some commercials get it, some don't. Ed mentioned hemp. Yes, hemp is really good. Wasn't it George Washington that had a hemp farm?
George Washington what?
Had a hemp farm. Because they used it for paper. There is so many ways, all of us, if we did our part. I don't, if you're walking down the street and you see just a little receipt, pick it up and throw in the garbage. That's your, that one receipt. If everybody in America picked up one receipt off the ground, you imagine how much garbage that would be? It'd be a couple tons of garbage, I bet, if we all just picked up a piece of paper and all put it in one bag or one truck, and it would help. That's what we need to get people back to, is being proud. And all these stupid candidates running, where is America in their speech? Where is loving America and our founding fathers and making America better? They don't have to use Keep America Great or Make America Great. They don't even want to use that because, it's Trump. Well, no, it's not. Keeping our country wonderful and loving our flag and our anthems and loving our forefathers and wanting to make America better. I mean, when I was in...
Look at Mike Bloomberg's slogan, Mike will get it done. Do you realize what that says? Mike will get it done. You don't have to do anything. I'll take care of it for you. Talk
government programs.
Let the government take care of you. I'll do everything for you. You can sit back and party and play your video games, and you don't have to think about anything because I'll do all the thinking for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and cotton, even the cotton fields here. We have a lot of them down south, so when we go through, I pick a bunch, and I keep them. How people put stuff in their windowsills, like flowers that are pretty. My kitchen window, I like keeping cotton. I don't know why. It just looks cool. I love how it looks on the stem. It's just really cool. How awesome, something that God created, that we could pick cotton and be self-sufficient with cotton. Why make a material when we've got it growing? God didn't leave us with a way not to take care of ourselves. He made a way for us to take care of ourselves in all different forms of plant life and food life. And we're supposed to teach our next generation of how to be self-sufficient. And no, like you said, let Mike do it. Yeah, let's let Mike bring in this government job, and you won't have to do much.
Well, if Mike's going to do everything, then I don't have to work. He'll do it all.
That's right. And in the meantime, you're going to give away your house and your cars and
well, that's all right. He'll provide a bus for me, and he'll give me free housing and free food and.
Oh, well, yeah, if you want to live in the projects.
Remember, Bernie's workers say the gulags aren't that bad, and Hillary wants us to go to camp. Wouldn't that be great? Camp was fun. Sorry, I'm making fun of the Democrats really badly. Forgive me. No, don't forgive me. It's important. It's intentional. All right. Yes, Edward, get Trump out of office, or we're going to have to get jobs. Yes, because
Mm-hmm.
welfare is going to go away. You're going to have to work. There is one problem. Supposedly, Clinton was going to help people get off welfare and go back to work, and so they had all these training programs. But the jobs were already being shipped overseas. There weren't jobs for
Mm-hmm.
people to train to get into. The only jobs they could find were minimum wage or below.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They were being trained to be nursing assistants, and that was about it.
Oh, and think of all the people that got into these tech businesses, and all the tech businesses were, of course, in other countries. And because I had friends that got into it, and then when they got out, they were like, "Okay, I'm ready." Well, there was nothing there. There was just no work there at all, and it was sad because then what? Now what do they do? Well, now my computer guy, he went through all that, and when he got out, he had to open his own business, small business, but it was being crushed. He just couldn't afford it. The taxes were so high that he had to go to not having a business to making house calls instead because he couldn't afford the overhead for it. And here he had a degree and promised that if he did this, he'd be making lots and lots of money. Well, with you chasing these companies out, there was nothing left for these people. And either they went overseas to Asia or Japan or China, where all those high techs are. Because they even ran out of the jobs in California because of high taxes. You
Well,
know.
Chicago, the south side of Chicago, which was just outside of Gary, Indiana, was a big high tech area. A lot of factory jobs on the south side of Chicago. And those all got run out, and you ended up with in South Chicago was slums. The apartment buildings, so many of them had broken windows. I mean, the way those poor
Mhm,
people had to live, and then there was no work, they had no money, so therefore they couldn't leave. They were stuck
mhm,
there. And when Clinton came in with his, getting rid of the food stamp program that he had, aid to dependent children, ADC, and the welfare that they used to have, he changed everything. And so you had to do, it was welfare to work program. So you could be on welfare for what, 3 months. You were supposed to get trained for a job. Uh, but there were no jobs in Chicago to get. A
mhm,
lot of the ghetto community in South Chicago moved gradually north, 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 all the way up to Milwaukee. And then Wisconsin had a better program because they were more red. It was
mhm,
Wisconsin at that time was more of a Republican state, so it was
mhm,
run better, and so you had people fleeing out of the welfare areas of South Chicago. What a dangerous place that was, man! When you were driving through, you wanted to make sure and hope that you had enough gas before you went through South Chicago and South Bend and Gary, Indiana, because the last thing you wanted to do was have to get off the highway and go get gas or have a breakdown on the highway. I mean,
mhm,
one time we were driving from South Chicago through South Chicago into Michigan, and on the other side of the road, we were southbound, they were northbound. There was a black guy beating on this black woman outside of the car, just on the left side of the highway, not the right side. Hardly any room to be over on the left. We got off at we did a U-turn and came back and picked her up. And, all she wanted to do was just be dropped off at the next exit. It's like, wow.
Well, MM mentioned the last 25 years, many of the black community went to the southern states. It was cost effective. That's why we moved here from California. Um, we before we left, if there was like a McDonald's hiring for like 2 or 3 positions, there would be a line of applicants of 100, 200, sometimes 1,000 waiting in line for those 2 jobs. There was just no work, and it was so expensive. So when we moved out here, it was like plenty of work. But see, the thing with Arkansas, and I believe even Mississippi was going through the same thing. We had Democratic governors, like we had the Clintons, that raised taxes 127 times to where we couldn't afford to live. They just could not live here. Nothing. Everything went to a standstill. They were almost into a depression before Guy Tucker got in office. I believe it was Guy Tucker after Clinton, and then it was Huckabee after that. I mean, I could be wrong. It could have been Beebe. Beebe was another good one. But once we had a Republican move in office, Republicans are always cut taxes, capitalize, and make everything grow. And that's the plan, usually for a Republican, where Democrats feel if you raise taxes up, more programs, more free stuff, the better you'll be. And so when we got a Republican that got in office and cut all them taxes, we seen Arkansas grow. And Mary Ellen, we've talked about this, and you said, new houses. This town of Conway is booming. We have been booming since 96 when I got here. It used to be a sleepy little town with maybe a couple little suburbs housing, sporadic around the town just a little bit. Now it's huge. It's huge. We have beautiful homes here for anybody, from the poor to the very, very wealthy. And we've got 3 colleges. And that's what our country's supposed to do, like with Chicago. It keeps ending up with a Democrat governor, Democrat rule. That's why I keep telling your viewers that you need to look at who's in your state for your local offices up to the governor. So you can get Republicans in to cut the taxes and actually not use their stimulus package, but let's stimulate people. Let's not create a stimulus package. Let's stimulate the people with lower taxes, get them back to work, and watch the boom. And, that's where Trump came in. He wasn't a politician. He's a businessman. And when you have a businessman that knows how to run a company, you're going to get a booming economy. And that's pretty much all it is. I know the few times I've helped people out that were more into advertisements and buying stuff, I said, no. Let's look at the way you're managing the company. And even the places where I've stepped in and managed, I've be able to turn it around and make it more better. Just having a good business plan. You got to look at your faults, fix your faults, and then work on a future. And that's what this country needs. And after Trump, we need another businessman in office to finish up the work that he's doing. And so all of us work.
We're going to have to stop this. We're just about out of time, and we can't go over. We still have the rest of this week to finish up, so we're just about out of hours for the show. So thanks, guys, for being here. I've got my cell phone number up. If anybody wants to do a donation for Larry, give me a text message, and I'll tell you how to do it. We're going to keep filtering, the money that trickles in. We're filtering through Mark, and he's hanging on to that for him. So thanks, guys, for being here. We will talk tomorrow, and be praying for the Israeli elections. They should, with the time change at this point, I thought their election was the 3rd, like our Super Tuesday, but I read somewhere today that it was today. So I'm not really sure about the timing, but it was either today or tomorrow. But in any case, it's either done today or starting shortly. So And then on Thursday, be praying about this, folks. On Thursday, the Louisiana is going to the got here. Louisiana government is going to the Supreme Court over their bill that says that abortion doctors have to have visitation privileges to the local hospital, or they can't practice. And that's for the preservation of at least the one life that's injured. You know, and folks, do you realize that Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, despite being Republicans, and there was somebody else who joined, there was another representative who joined the Democrats in voting against saving the life of a baby who had survived an abortion, that they were not to provide any care to this screaming infant. I heard with Dave Dovenmeyer this morning on his program, Coach Dave Live, one of the most effective things to do at an abortion clinic, if you're going to protest, you can go on YouTube, and there you can click on, do a search for babies crying. There is a 1-hour video of babies crying, and if you just play that at full volume off your cell phone outside the baby abortion clinic, that has been one of the things that they have found to be the most effective. And I heard somebody this morning who was talking about, she was 49 years old. She wrote a letter to her baby apologizing for what she'd done. And she said there isn't a day that goes by that she hasn't thought about that baby that she had murdered. And, more people like her coming out with their story about what the abortion cost them. She said when she started hearing these callous women boasting about their abortions, she knew she couldn't stay silent anymore. And that is one of the most effective ways to get people thinking who are considering abortion is, as we hear more and more stories of the cost it has had, the toll it has taken on women. And she was one of the lucky few who actually stayed with the father of her aborted baby and has had a couple more children with him. That's very unusual. Usually when there's an abortion involved, that relationship doesn't survive between the girl and the guy. So anyhow, thanks guys. That's enough for today. We will talk tomorrow. God bless you. Have a great evening. And I'd appreciate prayer that this offer that supposedly was coming in yesterday will actually come, and maybe a couple more. I'm so ready to, especially since this house doesn't look like mine anymore. I am so ready to be out of here. God bless y'all. Bye.